At step number 6, first you have to input the focal distance on the AP view and beam center on the AP view. What is focal distance? It is the distance between the radio source and film cassette. In this case, you see how to measure it when the cassette is on the table. In cases when you use the cassette holder which is not on the table, it's improper to measure the distance from the radio source till the cassette. Proper measurement is to measure the distance till the radio opaque ruler which is placed on the table. What do we mean by words beam center? Beam center is the center of the beam going from radio source to the cassette. It is the center of the beam on the cassette. We can mark it by any subject like you see on the screen while making X-ray films. It can be subject of any shape, but it must be seen on the X-ray films. We input the focal distance in millimeters in approximate field. In this case it's 1000 millimeters. We mark the box of beam center and we point the beam center. If we have previously while making X-rays forgotten to mark the beam center on the cassette by a subject visible on the X-ray, in this case we have now to try to find the approximate center of the X-ray film and to mark this beam center in this point. Now we have to mark the struts. You see strut number 1 box and you see 3 thin red lines near this box. Also you see 3 thin lines on the X-rays. It's barcodes of strut number 1. On strut number 2 there are 2 thin and 1 thick line, and so on. How it works? So you see, we use these barcodes for identification of strut numbers for each. The combination of thick and thin wires give us 6 barcodes which we use for marking of each of 6 struts. So you see the strut number 1, and you see the part of the help in our software which helps us to find the necessary strut. So strut number 2, 2 thin wires, 1 thick wire. Strut number 3, 2 thin wire and 1 thick wire in the center, and so on. We see this help and we look at the X-ray and we find the necessary strut because we have to mark it. Now we have to point strut number 1. We check the box strut number 1 and we draw the line of strut number 1 in projection of the strut's center. Then we have to align it. When we draw the line, we drag, pushing the left bottom of the mouse, we drag from up to down for strut number 1 as well as for strut number 3 and strut number 5, which have the joints fixed to the proximal ring. So we drag from up to down and we try to make the strut center in the middle of the strut's projection on the X-ray. Then we click the box joint number 1 and align the small shoulder of the joint with the middle axis of the bolt, and intersection of the strut's line and bolt's line is the joint of the strut, even when we don't see the strut joints properly. Now we mark strut number 2 and we drag the line from down till up. For struts number 2, 4 and 6 we have to draw the line from down till up because they have the joints fixed to the distal ring, even when we don't see the joint. Then we mark joint number 2 and we align the joint. Now on strut number 2 we see the joint very properly, so we can align it not only by the lines but also dragging the center of the joint's symbol. Strut number 3, as I told you, from up till down we draw it and we align with the center of the strut, and also we see very properly and very good seeing the joint of strut number 3. And now we will mark also the joint of strut number 3 and align the small shoulder of this tool with the axis of the bolt fixing the strut. Now you see strut number 4. The joint of strut number 4 is not seen and we cannot mark it, but we can show the software the strut number 4 itself. So we will mark the strut number 4 box as well as we did previously, and now we drag the line from down till up. You remember strut number 2, 4 and 6 from down till up, struts number 1, 3 and 5 from up to down. And we don't mark the joint of strut number 4. It's possible because it's not necessary to mark all the struts and all the joints. Now we see strut number 5. The joint of strut number 5 is seen very clear, so we can draw as well the line of strut. We can mark the strut, and we can also mark the struts joint. We had drawn the line from up to down, and now we align the strut with the center of the strut's projection on the X-ray. We align this pink line, and now we will mark the joint of strut number 5, and we will align this line of the joint, the small shoulder, with the bolt center. The same we do with the strut number 6. We draw the line from the joint from down to up. You had seen previously that bottom forward became green, so we can go forward not marking strut number 6. But we do it, the more data we give to the software, the better calculation will be. Now we have marked everything on the AP view, and we can press bottom forward. Now you see we can make magnification, we can enlarge, we can zoom out. So you see, now we can go forward to the lateral view. The same procedure we do on the lateral view. First we point focal distance 1000 millimeters in this case. We point beam center and we click on the beam center projection. In this case it will be in the middle of the X-ray film, in the approximately. Now we will find and mark strut number 1. The same we do from up to down. We draw this line, and you see, where is this? Here is strut number 1. Here is strut number 1. We had drawn this line, and now we align it with the middle of strut's projection, and now we will point the joint of strut number 1, and align the shoulder of strut number 1 with the bolt center, and find the joint center. Then we will point strut number 2, and we will draw this line of strut number 2. And we'll mark the strut joints, align the line of the joint, and then find the center of the joint. Now we will mark strut number 3 on smaller magnification. We do it, it's easier. We don't see the joint of strut number 3, that's why we will not mark it. Then we will draw strut number 4. You see, we draw the line from down to up. And we will mark the joint of strut number 4, which is seen very clear on the X-rays. The same procedure we make with strut number 5, but remember we draw strut number 5 from up to down, and we align the strut. Sometimes it's better to do it on bigger magnification to find the proper centers of the struts and centers of the joints. So you see now we mark strut number 6, its center. You see, in this case, on the lateral view, we marked only 3 joints, and we marked all the struts we could see, all the struts we could see in this case, but it was not necessary because it's possible to mark smaller number of struts. The forward bottom is green, and we press it, and we see the warning calculation in the progress. The calculation in the progress can be a few seconds or can be a minute or more. It depends on the possibilities, on the capabilities of the laptop you use. Calculation is complete. The software shows us red lines which must match the strut projections on the X-ray. If even one red line doesn't match strut projection, we have to answer the question we see no, and to get back to the previous steps to find the mistakes we had. If the red lines match the strut projection, it means that the data and the pointing of struts were made proper, and we can go to the next step. We must answer yes